Hey, hello everyone. We've got a few more viewers out there. Okay, folks, I'm going to be back in, let's say, about 30 seconds or so. So don't go anywhere. Okay, we're going to start real soon. See you in just a bit. Hello there, welcome, and we are going live right now. This is MixStream episode 43. Thank you so much for watching. If you are new to this channel, please do click on the subscribe button. If you're not yet a subscriber, don't forget to click on the notification bell as well. Again, my tongue is a little bit tied, right? It's a bit of a tongue twister, if you know what I mean. And, well, it's Friday, 9 p.m. We're doing this as usual. This is a bi-weekly show that I do on my channel. That means every 2 weeks, every fortnight or so, where I feature, right, the mixing process of a song that I'm working on. Most of the artists that we feature tonight are, independent artists. And tonight's really, really special because, right, the band that I'm working on is all the way from Shenzhen, China, okay? And your name is, right, Serpent Tyrant, okay? So super, super cool. If you're watching this right now, please do say hi. There's a live chat that's going on right now. If you are watching this, please do say hi. We've already got a couple of people watching in the chat. Hang on, I got to change one thing there. I want to say, and I'll give a shout out and say hello to all of you as well. I got to change this little text over here. And okay, this should be the right one. Okay, I need you to change one little text. You should be able to see the text up there which says MixStream 43 if I'm not mistaken. Okay, right, cool. So Sunny is right, one of the band members. Okay, Sunny says hi JD. All right, hello Sunny, hope you are doing fine. And the rest of the bandmates as well are all the way from Sunny, if I'm not mistaken, you're in Beijing, but some of the bandmates are in Shenzhen, right? And then Shenzhen, Guangdong area right now, they're you guys are having a lockdown, right? I hope that, the rest of the band is fine. I hope everything's okay. Hopefully, right, hopefully everything is under control over there lah. Okay, so some little bit of background about Serpent Tyrant. So, and I'm reading from their bio here. So they are a metal band from Shenzhen, China. The style of heavy music is a hybrid of Chinese traditional folk and orchestral instruments, heavy riffs and drums. Those of you who've been tuning a little bit earlier already would have already been hearing a little bit. You've heard some of the music, right, of the song that I'm going to be working on. So they were founded in 2020, right? They have been actively performing around the Pearl Delta in Guangdong, China, recording several demos, planning to release the album by the end of this year. So we have band members. We have Sunny, who is on guitars, right? Sunny, you are actually a Malaysian, just in case for the viewers to know, but you are actually currently studying and working over there, right? Studying or working. Okay, Chen on guitar, Moon on vocals, and Mayonnaise. Wow, that's a very cute name on bass, and Li Yue on drums. Okay, forgive me if I've mispronounced the names. Okay, all right. So anyway, details of the band are down in the description below. Without further ado, let's get down to it. Okay. One more thing. If you're watching this and you want to subscribe, if you want to support the band directly, right? Obviously, you can follow their, check out their stuff, right? Everything is in the description. You can follow them, follow their updates, and when their album comes out, make sure you go and stream it or buy it, or whatever way is possible. But another way that if you want to contribute is via this MixStream program, and how you do that is by signing up via the Patreon platform and becoming a Patreon subscriber. How do you do that? Right, again, details, it's up in the little text up there in the top of the screen. It's also down below in the description. You'll find out more. And if you sign up as a Patreon member, 50% of whatever revenue that we generate from contributions, Patreon sign-ups members will go to the band, okay? Right. Instructions are all in the description. So let's head on. Without further ado, let's get down to the mixing process. So this is actually the second song which I'm mixing for the band. I've already finished one, the very first one. So I've explained this before. So if a band is kind of working on an EP or whole collection, sometimes for some bands you want everything to sound very consistent. Okay, so what do I mean by that? That means you want the whole EP, the whole album to have this cohesive sound to it. Very obviously, you want the vocals to have the same treatment. You want the vocals to have a very similar treatment. You don't want, like, you know, in one song the vocal sounds like that, and the second song it sounds like a totally different person. That would sound totally odd. And then when it comes to rock, when it comes to metal, things like the drums, your bass, the amount of low end, right? The balance, the respective balance between your drums, bass, and the guitars and the vocals need to be consistent, because that is very, you know, a signature of a certain band is how they balance their stuff. The drums, the bass, the guitars, the vocals, okay? So we already did that because we did the first song. So like some of the other projects that I've done before on stream, so this means that I have already created custom presets, right? Custom presets, and also, you know, taken down some mix notes which I will apply, right, on this mix tonight, which speeds up the process. You don't have to recreate the processing chain. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, or so to speak, right? For every single different song, you can just use back and refer, and the end result is the EP, the album, will have a cohesive and consistent sound, right? Everything from the bus processing, the type of reverb that I'm going to be using, the type of compression that I'm going to be using on the different elements, all that is super consistent. So enough of all the jibber jabber talk out of the way. Let's start with the very first thing, okay? These guys, they are very super exciting and a extremely dynamic band. Super cool, right? We haven't had a metal song on our channel in a while, or something heavy, so this one hopefully will be a treat for metal fans out there. So do check them out. Do check Serpent Tyrant out. Their details are all in the description, okay? So start off by taking a overall big picture look at the song, and that is by putting together a rough mix, okay? So I'm going to play the song. Let's listen to the song from start to finish. Let's listen to the arrangement. Listen to all the different various parts, where it comes in, where the solos come in, how the song structure is. And then once you understand the overall song structure, you framed it, you've discovered all the discovery portion, then you know how to proceed. So here we go. Let's start. And the song kicks off right away, okay? Gives you a sucker punch right to your face. So, intro. First verse. It goes into a gallop style, very interesting change of drum pattern, and then double pedals in the chorus. The vocals in the chorus are triple track, you have 3 layers, so it gives it a bigger sound. Right, this is again a part of arrangement. This is music arrangement 101. You want to create dynamics. So transitioning from one section to another, just by adding layers is one way of creating dynamics. And here we go. First solo, you got a synth solo and guitar solo. Yeah! right. Second verse. It starts off with the gallop beat. Second half of the verse, building up dynamics. And then second chorus. Okay. And then it goes to a different pattern with the right cymbal. Get into the bridge. That vocal there probably needs a little bit of, like a longish delay, so we have a delay tail to it. And here we go. We've got a little shamisen in here. This is the cool signature of the band, Then we have the Japanese flute, the shakuhachi. Yeah, this is the part where everyone's gonna be bopping their head, man. Okay, now we get into the other guitar solo. Breakdown into just the flute instrumental section. We got some synths going. Check this out. Last chorus. Go. And a big dramatic ending, okay? This is just a rough mix. So always start a rough mix first to give, so you have a big picture look at the whole song and the entire arrangement before we go into detail, all right? So here we go. Let's go into the actual mix itself. So some of the instrumentation I explained earlier. Right, you've got drums, you've got bass, you've got a rhythm guitar, you've got lead guitar, you have a bunch of synths, and you also have some traditional instruments as well, right? Again, this is their signature blend. So here we go. Let's start first of all, and long-time viewers will know where I'm going with this. First things first, very important to always get your initial levels. And, right, by what I mean by getting initial levels, right? Gain staging your mix so that you're going to end up, your overall mix is going to have sufficient headroom, a good healthy level, right? So that the noise floor is not going to be an issue. But very importantly, setting this initial level will make sure that every time I'm monitoring or mixing or working in my studio in front of my speakers, I'm going to be monitoring this at a consistent volume level, a consistent dB, right? So I aim to work at about 85 dB SPL, right, on average over here. So, right, that is, you go and Google Fletcher Manson curve, okay? Right, afterwards I get criticized by other audio engineers for getting the terminology wrong. Fletcher Manson curve, go and Google it, right, or check out some of the videos on my channel where I explain about it. So basically, it means that at around 85 dB level, that is where our human hearing, the frequency response, is the most flat. So that's why, we always tout that figure like 85 dB. So how do I get that? Very easy. So what I do, let me pull up the bottom mix console so that you all can view it. What I'm going to do is I use the kick drum as a starting point, okay? So how to get that level, at least for me, in my room, in my studio, is I'm going to set the kick drum level so that the it's going to be peaking at minus 12 dBFS, okay? And let me just quickly open up the master channel so that you can see, all right? Actually, you can kind of see it down here as well, but this one is a little bit bigger. So minus 12 dBFS, the kick drum is going to be peaking, all right? Remember, peaking, all right? It's going to be hitting minus 12 dBFS, and after that, once I've set that kick drum level, everything else, right, all the rest of the drum kit, all the rest of the instrument, the bass, guitars, vocals, everything will be balanced relative to that. So that is how I approach, right, in setting my initial levels. So let's start with the kick drum first of all, okay? So here we go. I should have already set this, okay, because initially I've been doing all this prep work beforehand. So let's just look at a kick, okay? Wow, these are obviously these are sample drums. I use you know, the guy sent me a MIDI track, and then the drums here are from Steven Slate, right? SSD 5. So let's start with kick. And all right, so let's take a look at the master. It's kind of peaking at about minus 10, right? minus 9.9 to be precise. So this means I can afford to bring it down, let's say 2 dB. Let's bring it down 2 dB, okay? All right, so let's bring it down 2 dB to about minus 11.5. Okay, and this should be giving me, in fact, I can bring it down even more, actually. Let's take it down to minus 12.5. Okay, so let me show you the master channel again. So there we go. It's peaking at about minus 12 dB, okay? You can see here. Speaking about that, so set the kick drum at that level. When everything else is balanced to that, it's going to give you a good healthy level. And here, when I'm monitoring, it's giving a consistent level every time I work. Okay, so every time whenever I'm doing something, I'm monitoring it back at about minus 80, at about 85 dB SPL. Okay, there's no minus value in there. Okay, so kick drum. All right, let's start with that. Then let's blend in. Let's bring in the snare. Okay, here we go. Okay, nice. All right, so as you can see, this is kick 5. I'll bring it up here so you can see it earlier. Kick 5 NRG, snare 15 NRG. These are, right, Steven Slate SSD 5 samples. They already sound good from the get-go. There's really nothing much that needs to be done lah. I'll talk a little bit about the tape and console emulation later, but just to let you know, all the drum tracks, because they originally come from Steven Slate drums, right, SSD5, the VST player. When I exported all the MIDI into audio tracks, they've all been running through the tape and console emulation. Okay, I'll elaborate on that a little bit further, but let's take a look. Kick drum. Let me show you the edit window for the channel. Now, I don't use much compression. I very rarely use compression on the individual drum channels, right? I prefer to just do it on the overall drum bus. But I do, right, like to use a little bit of limiting. And what I have in here, this is Little Clipper. Little Clipper from Boss, okay? And what this does is that this is just going to, you know, there's some hits there, especially towards the where the accents are and maybe where the double pedal sections are, where the kick drum kind of hits a little bit hard, and that's great, right? This means that in the way that they've programmed the drums, right, they have introduced some dynamics into it so that, you know, it's not totally mechanical, which is a great way. A hallmark of good drum programming is that you need to have dynamics in it, okay? So, excuse me. Right. Let me mute. I had to mute myself. You don't want to hear. You do not want to be hearing, you know, someone coughing on stream lah. So here we go. Kick drum. So let's see what it's doing. All right. So this is, as you can see, it's just catching the loudest peaks up here. It's just catching it a little bit, right? It's not compressing it. It's just catching some of the loudest peaks. Okay. There are some things EQ-wise that I've done, so let's go through it. There is a small dip at about 140, I'll show you what 140 sounds like. This is usually a typical kind of a boxy resonant frequency lah, around that low mid frequency. This is what 140 does. Boom, 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 boom. That note, tung, 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 around that note. Okay, so my advice is that hopefully you're listening to this on a good pair of speakers or a good pair of headphones or earphones. If you're listening to this or watching this on a mobile device or a phone, there's going to be a lot of stuff that you're going to miss out, you know, especially if it's anything to do with low frequencies or the super high frequencies. So a little cut at 140, that's very, very typical, right, of what I do. And there's another cut here at about 112 hertz. Now, this is actually what we're doing here. This is actually an octave above the fundamental frequency of the kick drum. So this kick drum has got a fundamental frequency of, let's play it, right? Okay, of about, you can see here, kind of about 50 hertz around here, right? 50, it's quite low actually, like 40, 50 hertz, right? There's a good amount of low end there. So an octave about that is about 100 and, you know, between 100, 105, 110 hertz, that region. So here I've got this little cut at about 112. This, and moderately, it's still narrow, but you know, it's just a moderate cut lah. Not much, right? Just like 3.7 dB here, but a narrow cut. So this is just to take out that first octave of the kick drum. Now, this little cut here is going to play a big role because this is going to give space for the bass guitar, all right? So we're just making sure that the kick drum and the bass guitar, right, live in their respective bandwidths, lah, right? Kick drum here, I prefer to have the kick drum a little bit lower, right? So the 40, 50 sub range, 50, 60, 70, I like the kick drum to take that. And then above that, you know, that's where the bass guitar will take over, lah, right? Take a little bit more prominence. So one more thing, all right, quickly, all right, at about 1.1K, there is another dip here, all right, about 5. This is just to get, all right, again, a little bit of that plasticky box sound that we want to get rid of. We still want the attack, but you don't want it to be too plasticky. Let's move on, okay? Snare drum. So similarly, I don't think there's any EQ at all on this snare. And yes, I am right. There's no EQ at all, okay? Again, because if the sound source that I'm using, which in this case, Steven Slate Drums SSD5, the samples, already sound good. Don't feel like you need to, right? EQ everything just for the sake of it. This one, no EQ at all, just balance. Okay, hi-hat. Right, hi-hat, we can sort of remove a lot of the low frequency. So I am going to go up to about 500 hertz right here. And let's just blend in the hi-hat and see. So according to my notes, I have it about minus 8.5, but let's check it out. Okay, so it's this section. Yeah, choruses actually. Okay, now, there is a little bit of an EQs here that will probably be needed, right? Let's solo the hi-hat. There's one little ringy. There, at about 970 hertz, that kind of a frequency. And there we go. That's it. Super simple. That's all we need. Then next one, let's dial in the overheads. I'm skipping the toms first because the way that I like to build a drum mix, I usually prefer to build it with the overheads. Let the overheads fill in. Traditionally, that's how I would work. Okay, but sometimes, right, there may be exceptions, lah. But right, this, right, and it's again your own decision on how you prefer to work, right? Some people like to fill in everything with the closed mics first. I tend to want to bring in the overhead and the room mic really early. So there we go. And once again, no, just a minor EQ, right? A little bit of EQ, taking out a little bit of 400 hertz. That is again a very typical range, you know, of where the boxy low mids are. And just a narrow cut, about 2.51K. So let's solo this and see what is this. Yeah, I think I think it's actually coming from the hi-hat, a little bit of the resonance there. Let me just solo this and we will see. Yeah, that note, right? You might be a little bit piercing, right? If you're listening to it, wing, you know, that kind of frequency, that note there. So that helps to just tame it a little bit. All right. Now, as you can see here, the overhead here is being fed to this overhead bus, right? I won't explain or elaborate too much. I actually have a video right on the channel. My project template video, which is one of my most popular videos actually, right? So it explains why I have it, you know, how it's routed and what are the main usual plugins that I use there. But this is being sent to this overhead group. And what I do have here is this instance of AUC's E2 de-esser. So de-essers, they're not only just great for de-essing vocals, but they are very, very good for various other problem-solving tasks as well. So in this instance, one of my favorite uses of a de-esser in here is just to have a little mild, just a gentle massage of the top end of the cymbals, right? I use that usually on the overheads, just to every time when maybe a crash, right, a crash or attack is being played, it just tucks it down a little bit. So let's check it out. Let's see a spot where we go. Let's say maybe around here. Let's solo this. Right. You can see it's acting on the right cymbal. Let's find another section somewhere with a little bit more cymbal action here. There we go. So you can see it just hits on some of the brighter hits, and it's not a lot. It's like 1.5, 2 dBs, not much. That's all it does. Just to control a little bit of the high end, right? So it's not so piercing, right? So that is very, very useful and very suitable. So let's listen in context with the rest of the drum kit. Let's listen. Very nice. Sweet. Okay. Now I'm going to pull in right now the room mic. Let's solo the room, okay? Room mics are super, super important. The room sound is really one of the keys in getting a big rock drum sound. Okay, let's listen to. It's nice, big and wide and far. So there is a little bit of EQ. There's a high pass filter at about 20 and a low pass filter at about 13K over here. So taking out all the super bottom end, taking out all the super top end. Okay. And again, centered at about 400 Hz, there's this wide little cut just to take out, again, some little boxiness. And this one is at about 73, okay? So you're getting, it's one of the low-end frequencies that's building up from the kick drum. So I can sort of solo that for you and then we can hear. Yeah? It's just a little bit of a boom, right? That's in the room, which... It's okay if it's the close mic, right? But in the room, we don't really need too much of that bottom, low end, right? Again, this is something that's a case-by-case basis. You have to evaluate, right, based on your song, on the individual style or the genre or how it's recorded, right? It's all varying cases. But with this song, with this track, with the sound samples that are being used, this is what's needed. I just needed to take out a little bit of the 70 Hz there from the room. So let's listen. Kick, snare with the room, which is pretty much most of the drum kit. Alright, so the room gives a little bit more size. In fact, I might even bump it up a little bit more, you see. But maybe that's something I'll keep in mind, alright? So this is something that's called set and don't forget. It's a phrase which was something that I learned from another really, really awesome engineer. His nickname is called Slipperman. His real name is Tim Giles, right? He's an American producer and engineer. he moved to Australia, but sadly, right, right, he passed away last year, lah. So sadly, he's not around, but you know, he's an awesome guy. I learned a lot of things from just studying his stuff and reading his blogs. So anyway, set and don't forget means that you set something, right? You set whatever your EQ settings, compression settings, reverb settings, whatever processing that you're doing. You move on, right? Set it, make your decisions there and then, move on. But don't forget about what you did earlier, because sometimes in mixing you may need to revisit back some other settings that you've done earlier. Everything affects everything. The moment when after I've EQ'd the drums nicely, beautifully, and then suddenly when I bring in the bass or I bring in the rest of the instruments, suddenly you find that, it's not working. I need to kind of tweak or change something, right, in the kick drum. Maybe, you know, maybe there's the snare, there's a certain frequency in the snare which is fighting with the vocal or fighting with the guitars. So we will always need to be open to the possibility that you sometimes need to double back and cycle back. It's not a linear process where you start from point A, point B, point C, all the way to Z. You'll see it sometimes in my other mix channels as well. Very often I'm in the middle of doing vocals and then suddenly I feel like, something in the guitars is bothering me. I would just jump back and deal with it and tackle it. So set, but don't forget, okay? Let me get a little sip. Let's move on. So snare, kick, snare, overhead, hi-hat, and room. Toms, okay. Right, so we have 4 toms in this. And to be honest, again, because of the sound samples that I've picked, no EQ at all on these toms. They already sound good. Fight the temptation that you need to EQ this or EQ that. It sounds good. It works with the track. Just let it be, okay? All right. In the words of the late John Lennon, let it be. Okay, let me check and see. Let's see how the levels are. I've set it about -16. Yeah, that's about right. Okay, again, this is now in isolation. Very nice. Okay, now, very cool. That's it. Nothing much needs to be done there. All right, so let's move on now. One thing that I will do is that I feel like I do need to add is, and actually because I did it in the first mix for the band anyway, for Serpent Tyrant, the very first song, is that we just need to add a little bit of reverb on the snare and on the toms, and I'm going to do that right now. Let's start with the snare first of all. Right, so this is sending it to Reverence. Let's take a look at what I have, okay? So Reverence, here we go. Reverence is stock. It comes built in with Cubase, all right? And what Reverence is, this is actually a convolution reverb. So again, there's a video on my channel where I talk about explain the different types of reverb and what it is. Please go and check it out. Subscribe if you're not a subscriber, okay? So basically what this does is that it uses impulse responses. Yes, IRs, okay? Right, guitarists will know all about IRs and all that stuff. But one of the earliest users of impulse responses is in reverbs, okay? So what all these impulse responses are, it's impulse responses that were captured from either real life places. You could, for example, take an impulse generator, record it, capture it as an impulse response, and feed back into, let's say you go to Dewan Philharmonic, right, or you go to Batu Caves or some other famous venue. You can take an impulse generator, generate an impulse, record back the impulse, use it as an impulse response, right, and then the convolution reverb will model and simulate the acoustic characteristics of that venue. You can do that for actual physical spaces. You can do that with equipment, with hardware equipment. You run an impulse through a piece of gear on a particular set of settings, right, and then capture the impulse response, and you will recreate, let's say, an effect setting for a certain reverb, for example. Okay, this is one of the basis of how modeling works. But all right, this is a lecture, another video for a different day. So I've dialed in this, which is LA Studio. This is actually pretty much the default setting that comes on. So this is a very, very nice ambient LA, well, it's called LA studio, but basically it's a nice room reverb, right, of a typical studio. Now there are several different others, but this one somehow, very often, right, this one just works really, really well. Okay, so this is basically what it is. So let's listen to the snare. Let's turn off the reverb send first. All right, snare. So this is dry. You can hear a little bit of ambience, okay, in it. So let's turn the reverb on. Wow, okay, a little bit bigger, wider, okay. So this is just to the main reason why is that we would just want to I want the snare to sort of match the size of the room lah. So otherwise it'll sound very, very detached by itself. So that's why the reverb helps. Okay, there's a bit of reverb on the toms as well. So how much did I dial in? So right, we keep the same consistent setting, so that's about minus 2.8 dB. Let's go to the section with, let's say, toms. Let's just solo the toms here. Let's listen to it just dry without the reverb first. Okay, here we go, this section. Okay, so that's dry, and this is with the reverb. All right, so not too long. It's a very, very short reverb. Let's see how long is it actually. Doesn't really say information. Okay, length 1.119 seconds. Famous recording studio located in Los Angeles. Program produces a very short and dense reverberation. Yeah, so it's very, very rich sounding, but not too long lah. So there we go. That's it. One last thing I think is this little ride. There's a ride track as well. But I probably don't even need to dial this in because from the overhead itself is really, really clear already. But let's play this section anyway, okay? Because this one happens in like the second half of the chorus. Let's play it there. So this is just from the overheads. It sounds on just the overhead and room already sounds really cool, all right, and clear enough. But maybe I will just dial in a little bit of this to give it a little bit more better localization. What do I mean by that? Is that in a lot of drum recording, if I'm recording real drums as well, very much a big part of the entire drum sound is coming from the overhead microphones. So these close mics, right? For example, you put a spawn mic on the hi-hat, you just put a spawn mic on the right, right? Because sometimes you feel that you may additionally need to just highlight those elements a little bit. This is exactly what we're gonna do with this right track. Just a little bit, just to give it a little bit more definition so that you hear the right symbol right exactly on this position. Let's say if I usually typically will put it at about 75 right to the right. So let's just dial it in a little bit so it sounds a little bit more defined. I'm not trying to make it louder, just trying to make it more defined lah. Okay, right, here we go. Okay, it's very, very subtle. It just makes it a little bit more certain, more solid, right? Image, right? Instead of a blur, you hear a more specific direction where the right symbol is coming from. Okay, so there we go. All right, almost done. Not yet. One last thing I mentioned earlier that I typically do not put any compression on the close mics, on the individual mics, but I do like to apply the compression on the overall drum bus. And my favorite drum bus compressor is the API 2500, okay? Right, so what I've set it to, this is a moderately, it's like an auto release, 3:1 ratio. Attack, I've set it to the fastest setting, okay? So sometimes it depends. All right. Sometimes if I want to let a little bit more of the transient through, I may slow it down to as much as 1 millisecond. But right, in this case, we want something more aggressive. I want the compression to be a little bit more aggressive. This is going to be dialed down to the fastest attack setting, which is 0.03 milliseconds. That's lightning fast. Okay, so let's listen to the drum kit first without. All right. Right, without the drum bus compression. And now with. Okay, everything's a little bit tighter, right? It's a lot tighter sounding it brings out a little bit more of the sustain and energy, okay? Let's bypass without again. Okay, right. Now again, depending, in solos, the snare does feel a little bit choked, so maybe I will back it off a little bit. But again, it depends on context of how everything else goes. Okay, so let's just leave it there and then. Maybe I will probably actually I don't need to back off on the amount. It's just the attack time. Maybe I just need to increase the attack time a little bit. But so far, let's just leave it at that. Again, set. Don't forget, okay? Don't get too hung up and caught up on one particular setting, or agonizing over one single thing. Let's just move on, okay? Okay, let's go on. Talking about moving on, let's go on with the bass. So let's look at the bass, and this is probably where I will bring in the topic of tape and console emulation. So I mentioned earlier, right, that what I mean by that is that inside a digital audio workstation, we work right primarily, like the future now, it's primarily on digital, right? So the thing is that we still gravitate, we still love and appreciate some of the tones, especially a lot of our favorite records that we listen to, the classic records that we enjoy the sound of. A lot of that was recorded on analog equipment, analog tape, large format analog consoles. And what we're trying to re-inject back inside working ITB is a little bit of that flavor. So what I use are two plugins, right? Or two sets of plugins. The first one is called Virtual Tape Machines, right? By Slate Digital. This one, right, you are emulating, you are sort of modeling as if the audio was recorded on analog tape. In this case, right, 2-inch 16-track analog tape at 15 inches per second IPS. Now the second plugin that I have here, this is called Virtual Mix Rack, but what's in here is the thing that's important, okay? So, okay, interesting. I actually have this. So this is the important thing that I want to highlight. These first two plugins. The first one is called Virtual Channel. So this one, right, on the other hand, simulates, right, emulates the signal path going through a channel of an analog console. In this case, right, I've set it to the SSL 4000G series, okay? I seem to have gravitated towards this a lot more recently, right, within the past 1 or 2 years. And this moves on next to the FG73. This is a model of the Neve 1073 preamp. So it's as if it's going through, first of all, the tape machine, recorded on tape, coming on the tape machine into a channel of an analog console with the preamp of a Neve preamp. Okay, so it re-injects a little bit of that analog color that we so enjoy, right? That we so love, right? And we associate with a lot of our favorite and a lot of the best-selling records. Now, interestingly, I've got a couple of things right here. I actually have this set on the. I actually have this on the bass channel. So let's solo this first of all. In fact, let me just take out whatever I have this processing. Let me take it out. So let's just listen to just the raw bass, but still going through that tape, right? Tape and the console emulation. So let's go. So very aggressive, very punk rock kind of a bass tone. All right, very cool. So I actually previously had this, right? So this is super cool, right? This is really aggressive that we want to go for this. So I actually had this little clipper earlier on for the first song. It may not be necessary for the second song. Let me check it. Let me disable this. Very cool, very cool. Okay, so probably don't need it. It was the first track which needed the clipper. Now I don't think I need it. So let's switch this off. Okay, right. So but what I do have here is the instance of FG116. This is Slate Digital's emulation of the UA, the Universal Audio 1176 compressor. So I have this on. Let's turn it on. Let's see what it's doing. Okay, let's check it out. So I have this to give it a little bit of aggressive compression on the bass, right, beforehand. But you see that later on I have more compression as well. Let me bypass this. Okay, I feel that probably, let me just turn down the volume because it needs to be level matched a little bit. Okay, now let's listen in context. Okay, let's listen. Yeah. All right. Okay. Cool. So this is actually just the DI bass. All right. So it's cool. The guys actually, Sunny actually sent me also a distorted bass. So let's listen to this little distorted bass. So it's basically this. It's basically the same bass with just a little bit more overdrive and dirt in it. So what I did instead, all right, is I took the to try and get that similar effect, right? I actually ran it through this amp simulator, and this is from Plugin Alliance. This is the licensed, right, Brainworks model of the Ampeg SVT, the big tube, you know, classic 8x10, the refrigerator ampla. Okay, so right, so I dialed this in. So let's check it out. So without. Okay, this is just a plain DI. So running through the amp sim, a little bit more aggressive, and it's a little bit more sub actually. It's a little bit more sub. Bypass. So it's a little tame. You can hear it's like a DI sound, but this one really gives it a little bit more of an amp sound. Nice. So let's listen to it in context, right, with the drums. Very, very cool. I like that a lot, okay? So, okay, like, excuse me. Gets a little bit of a little bit of saliva inside the mouth and all that. Just give myself a sip of coffee right there. Let me just quickly read something that Sunny typed inside the chat and said, "Yeah, we're all good. Thanks, JD. A few gigs were canceled. Oh man, sorry to hear that, man. Hopefully it's not long. Okay. I wouldn't wish to this to happen, right, to you guys. I'm sure it really it wrecks it spoils it spoils a lot of things like for a lot of bands. Hope that, right, everything will turn out there. And Sunny said working. Yes, correct, right, you are working over there. Super cool, man. All right, so here we go. Let's go back to where we left off just now. Okay, now this song being slightly different, right? The bass track slightly different. I feel like we need a couple of things, okay? And I'm going to dial it in right now. Now, just to sort of get rid of some of the annoying pingy and very, very eye-speaky noise, I'm going to be, right, introducing this. This is TDR Nova. This is a parallel dynamic EQ, right? In case you don't know what the parallel dynamic EQ is, it combines the best of both worlds. It combines both the characteristics of a parametric EQ, where you can adjust your bandwidth, the amount of boost and cut, and the center frequency. Obviously, it combines an EQ with the characteristics, the workings of a compressor. So this means that you can, right, I can dial in very, very specific frequencies for this EQ to work in, and it works in a dynamic fashion. So let's look at this dynamic EQ in action. Okay, there are many other options. The best thing about TDR Nova is that it's free. I've got links, right, to where you can download TDR, right, down in the description. You can check it out. So This is what we do. So there's this very constant bing, 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 right? This real ice picky, you know, metallic kind of noise. We want the finger, definitely we want the finger metallic noise because that gives you the definition, that gives the attack to the bass. But there's just this one frequency. Let's dial it in, okay? I'll show you where that is, okay? So let's do it by selecting, right, going with the most narrow Q. Solo the band and let's dial it in, okay? Let's hunt for it. There we go. It's about 3K. That's about 3K, right? More specifically 3.1K. This is the one that we want to try and get rid of, okay? So we've soloed the band. Let's zero the gain, turn off the solo. Then this is where now without this, TDR Nova behaves just like a normal EQ. I could do this, just have this. But instead, I'm going to be engaging the dynamic section, the dynamic EQ part, and let me zero this first. Okay, right, and here we go, threshold. So this is what we do. I'm gonna go for wide band mode. Let's go for this one. Needs to be a little bit more aggressive, 4-1. Okay, attack, I want it to be as fast as possible because, right, immediately when that pingy metallic, right, 3K or ring comes out, I want the EQ to immediately grab it, okay? Now release, I'll let it be a little bit longer because I don't mind, right, letting it ring out a little bit more. Not letting it. We want to, because the sound rings out a little bit, I'm gonna have the release be a little bit longer. 200 milliseconds is still fairly medium lah, okay? So it will still hold on, the EQ will still act on it and only let go gradually. Okay, so here we go, 4-1 ratio. So let's dial in this dynamic EQ. Well, kind of, because the levels are quite high, immediately it's already working, and you can see. Bypass. Right. Very, very ice picky. So as you can see, what happens is with the dynamic EQ, it's very powerful and it's super transparent because it will only cut that frequency, right, when that frequency pokes out a bit too much. When it exceeds the threshold, right, it will dynamically reduce it. And when the frequency isn't there, right, it lets it go lah, right? You don't get any EQ cut, you don't get any attenuation there. So that's why dynamic EQ is a very, very powerful tool. Now, there's a few other stuff that I want to work on. There's another sort of a honky frequency which I want to deal with also. So let's do that. Okay, this is the one. Let's solo. Let's repeat the same process. About 1.1K, right? Okay. Again, if you're listening on headphones, this might be a little bit piercing, okay, when you hear these frequencies being soloed. So once again, wide band mode. Wide band mode means that we're gonna use the same settings as the other band. 4-1 ratio, fast attack, right? 200 milliseconds release. So there we go. Right? Okay, so this is, right, getting rid of that 1.1K, getting rid of that 3.1K in a dynamic fashion. So a little bit of roll off at about 15 Hertz. Let's keep it there. And this is gonna make it, right, it should make it a little bit more smoother lah, right, the bass. Okay, it's still poking out a little bit, so maybe I need another extra. Yeah, that's a little bit better. So maybe just a little help of a little bit of EQ here at exactly that same bend. So there you go. That's the bass, but not done with the bass yet, okay? This is only the bass track. Same thing, all right? with how I organize, right, my groups and all that. This bass is also going to this bass group, as you can see here. And there's a little bit more processing here. So let's take a look at what I've got, okay? First things first, this here, let's bypass all of these guys for now. And all right, first thing I have, this is Waves C4. This is a multi-band compressor, but I've only engaged, right, the first band, which is the low band. This is just to control the lowest of the low frequencies, okay? It's not acting on the low mids, not acting on the highs. This is just to control the real true bottom end of the song, so that later on down the line, when I run it through a little bit more processing, all those other processors are not going to have to work too hard. If you work some compressors a little bit too hard, right, sometimes it becomes very harsh. So instead, right, just massage it gently, run some processors in series, run a few different compressors to control, and then you have a much more smoother bass to it. Next thing I have here, this is Surfer EQ, right? So this is super cool, right? So Surfer EQ is from Sound Radix, and this is the light Focusrite edition, which you own any Focusrite gear, this one is free for you to download. You can go and download from the website. But what this does is that this is a EQ that tracks the frequencies in real time. It looks ahead, it tracks a specific frequency, right? It tracks the fundamental, meaning the root note. So if the bass is playing C or piano or whatever note is playing, instrument is playing a certain note, it tracks that note in real time, okay? I'll just play it for you so you can see. Pay attention to this. This is the root note. See what it does. Sorry, look at the green one, okay? C. Right, as you can see, right? It's around C, the note C, do-do-do-do-do, right? So it tracks it in real time. One of the beautiful things about this is that you not only can you set it to track the fundamental, but you can also set it to track the harmonics of that fundamental. So for example, if let's say we talk about C, right? In this case, C1 is, what frequency is that? Okay, let me try and calculate, right? C1 is about 31.5 hertz, if I'm not mistaken. 32 hertz, let's say 32 hertz, right? As you can see here, C sharp is about 34, 35 hertz. But what this allows us is that you can, let's say if you want to get rid of, let's say, the third harmonic, right? You can dial in here, this is the third harmonic, which is calculated here, 103 hertz, okay? So, and then same goes to, let's say, the fifth harmonic here, which is about 171 hertz. So what this does is that this is going to be, again, a dynamically moving EQ. So it moves as it tracks the fundamental frequency, always making sure that it's getting rid of that. In this case, I'm looking for the fifth harmonic. Let's solo this. I'll solo this, and then you hear exactly what I mean, okay? Okay, so this is the fifth harmonic. I'm going to select with the narrowest Q as possible, which is still fairly wide, right? And then I'm going to boost this, and you're going to hear what I mean. I'm trying to get rid of this frequency, right? It's a solo. You hear that? That, you know, that boxy, honky, low mid, which we don't want. We want to clean it up. But instead of just a normal EQ, like a little cut, this is a lot more powerful because it tracks exactly where it needs to do the cut, and it moves along, right, the fundamental frequency. Super powerful. So that's what it does. Okay, so not much. You just need like about 2 dB, 1 or 2 dB of a cut here, just to clean up that low mid border M, right? It gives more definition to the root note as well. So there we go. So that is the Surfer EQ Boogie. Now, next thing here is one of my favorites that I use on bass. Okay, now this is the 1176 Revision A. So this one is going to be pretty aggressive. I'm using this primarily, okay, primarily for the tone. So bear in mind, there's already one compressor. There's an 1176 which I dialed in and the track earlier on, okay. There's one there. Okay, let me just pull it up. There we go. So there's one compressor. And then there is another compressor, the Wave C4. Okay, and Surfer EQ, and now the 1176. Let's just see what all three of them are doing, okay? Let's go with the bass. Awesome. Okay, let's take a look at how the levels are, okay? I know you're not supposed to mix with your eyes, you're supposed to mix with your ears, okay? But especially at that fast note, it's keeping it very, very, very nicely and even. So this is what this is doing, right? And now let's move on. A couple more things I want to show you. Next thing I have, this is Bass Rider. So Bass Rider is from Waves. This one is again one of these intelligent plugins. What it does is that it will again track the level, and it will gently ride out, and as you can see here, this little fader is going to move up and down and keep the bass very, very consistent. This is different from compression because, like, compressor, you have your attack, your release, you have your threshold settings. So the compressor only acts after the signal has exceeded the threshold, which, you know, is a traditional way of how a compressor works. This is different. Bass Rider, right, does not depend on the threshold, right? It still detects where the threshold is, but it does it in a look ahead fashion. So it looks ahead at the bass signal and rides the fader accordingly, okay? So it's different from a compressor. This is a lot more transparent. This is as if you are doing manual compression with your finger on the fader, right? Except that the plugin does it naturally for you, right? So all you do is set a target, set the range, and you see, right, the Bass Rider will take it. So it raises, it brings it up, brings it down, right, accordingly, so that it is even all the way, okay? Which is awesome. So let's go on. MV2. One of my favorite plugins as well, okay? So MV2 here, this is another dynamics plugin from Waves that does something super cool. It's like a combination of expansion, parallel compression. What this does, right, on this low level thing is that it brings up a lot of that energy. It increases things like sustain. It brings up all the low level details such as the finger attack, pick attack, you know, the note definition. So all these lower level stuff, right, is brought up, right? It's upward expansion, you know, it's a little bit of parallel compression, brings out all these things. What it does, it increases the energy. That's basically what we're trying to do, right? We were trying to make everything, this is rock after all, it's metal, right? We want it to be aggressive, we want it to be, right, to be energetic. So we're squeezing out, I'm trying to squeeze out as much energy as possible, right, in the performance, in this case, right, from the bass. So here we go. Okay, let's bypass this. So it's evening out a little bit. Okay, so here is still a little bit flabby. This one just really evens it out a little bit more. Okay, it's very subtle, but you know, I can hear it. It's actually bringing out a little bit of the sustain. It's actually bringing up a little bit more of the note definition. Is the key, is one of the key things. So let's move on. Now, the next thing that I have here, this is R bass. Okay, so R bass here is a, it's actually a, it's a harmonic generator for bass. So what I'm doing in here is I've centered the frequency at about 90 hertz because the band uses a drop C tuning. So 90 hertz is, if I'm not mistaken, that is also about C, the note C. So around that region, is that so? Right? Oh, actually, no, it's actually around, no, it's not. So 90 hertz in here is actually about F sharp and G, actually. Oh, okay, my bad. Right. So I have dialed it around that region. And this goes back to actually where I talked about the kick drum, right? Well, basically the idea is the kick drum, I've left out some space at around this region. You see it about, it extends a little bit into 90 lah, okay? 100, 110 up to 140, a little bit of space there. So this is precisely where the bass, our bass, is coming back in. It's filling up that space, space which I've left, but the bass guitar is filling up that frequency range right now. So what this helps is that so you don't end up with a hole, all right, in your low frequencies. This fills up the bottom end really, really, really nicely, okay? So let's go back to the bass channel. Let's hear all of the drums and the bass working together. One last thing, another instance of virtual mix track down here. And this is just a little bit of EQ. Right, let me just very quickly, right, rolled off. I actually shelved, right, quite drastically a lot of the highs. So let's check it out. Bypass with it. Very sweet, okay? Right, so I'm adding back a little bit of that bite here with 800 Hertz and about 1.5K. About 2 dB at 1.5K and quite a lot, right? Quite drastic at about 9 dB at 800 Hertz. So getting it, again, wanting the bass to be aggressive, lah. That's what we want, okay? So let's listen to it. Now, I might want to dial this down a little bit. Because this tone is a little bit different, slightly different from the first song, so maybe it doesn't need that much. There we go. That's your kick and bass, drum and bass. So now let's move on to the part which I like, guitars. Very, very cool. So let's check out. All right. So we've got a couple of tracks of guitars. Okay. So there are actually some old tracks that were given, and actually there were some additional new tracks that Sunny sent as well. I actually kind of used a combination of both. I actually liked how both of them sounded. I did not use exclusively all the new tracks. I actually just blended in. So it's going to be a blend. I felt that this was the best combination. Okay, so it's all been organized. And same thing, I'm going to load in the tape and console emulation. The guitars sound really, really good already. Nothing much needs to be done. Okay, here we go. Tape. Console and emulation. Let's solo this track. Right. First guitar. Okay. Very cool. Okay. We just need to shave off some of the top end. Okay, now it's a bit of that low mid honk. That this little nasally honk at about 400. Very good. Okay, just this little bit of at about 6K. Very subtle. Very subtle. Okay, let's just listen to just the first guitar. Look. Very nice. Let's move on. Second guitar. Okay, this second guitar track. Same thing. Let's load this in. Let's solo it first. So this one is a little bit more lower mid, which I like. Okay, there's some sub frequency which we don't really need. So take out all the 60 Hertz and below. Okay, and also about 5K. We can also take out. Okay, well, usually again for guitars, you don't need this extreme bottom end. You also don't need all the extreme top end lah. But you don't want to be too much until you shave off too much of the air. We still want a little bit of that air out there, okay? So here we go. I kind of like this distortion too a lot better. So this one, I think I'm going to use this and fill this up a little bit more. Okay, as usual, right? The distortion, as you can see, it's all being summed to a single group, and we'll do a little bit more later. Let's move on. Okay, distortion 3 track. Let's solo this and let's check it out again. Same thing, tape and console emulation. Okay, right, very cool. So I like how Sunny, what he does is that he uses like 3 different tones, 3 different combinations. I think if I'm not mistaken, you like record with the bridge pickup, the neck pickup, and the middle pickup, right? So it's like 3 different combinations, and then you combine the 3, which is interesting. Not something that I usually do. You know, I prefer to kind of just stick to not more than 2 different pickup combinations for the rhythm. But hey, whatever works, man. Again, if the more unique or the more different you are from other bands or other guitarists, that helps to set a band apart from others, lah. Right? You try something different, it's a different approach. You know, that helps to give them identity. Okay, so this one is more of the, I think this would be more neck pickup, as you can see, bright, mid-rangey to, in this case, you know, a bit more fatter. Okay, now, so this one's got a little bit of, right, so this has got a little bit of this buzz at about 2.5. Okay, right, and a little bit of honk here. At about 380 hertz. Okay, so just little mild, little cuts lah. Nothing super drastic. Okay, so immediately by listening, okay, now there's actually this 4th track here, which is the new distortion track. Let's check it out, okay? Let's check this out in solo. Okay, first thing that I know, right? It's kind of clipping in terms of level, so let's bring this down. Yeah, okay, it's clipping the, I can hear it is clipping, right? Well, not to say clipping lah, it's kind of saturating the drive of the 1073 preamp. So we need to tone this down, okay? Let's bring this down. There we go. Alright, so this one has got a slightly out of phase kind of a sound, which in itself, right, in solo, might not sound really good, but it could be useful, okay, later on in the track. So let's just check it out. So it's a bit slightly hollow, slightly kind of a phasey kind of a sound. Let's again take out some of the top end. So at about 300. This could always come in handy, okay? This could always come in handy. So now, basically with these 4 guitar tracks, it's super cool, super awesome. I sort of know what I want to pick and sort of use as the main, right, tracks already. And the rest will be just to build in, give it a little bit more extra texture, a little bit more thickness, the other 2 tracks, okay? So pick one. And I know which one it is. It's the distortion 2 and 3, the 2nd and 3rd track. So let's just blend these 2 in, okay? Nice. Okay. Okay, let's check the polarity. Okay, now I want to just check a couple of things, and let's do this, right? Sometimes I will do this just to, especially maybe sometimes if it's stuff which I didn't record, but it's good to check as well. I want to sort of check the polarity relationship between these two guitars. And what I use to do that, okay, is this plugin called Waves in Phase. Okay, so we have in phase stereo. Stereo because I'm going to be checking with these two tracks lah. So this is, I'm going to strap this across the this distortion the group once again, right? That's how my template works. I send all the different stuff into different groups. It's easier to manage that way. So what this does, I'm just going to run the guitars through it, and it's going to analyze the audio. Okay, so let's just do the intro riff. Okay, and then let's capture. All right, okay, so just takes a few seconds, and then you get the result over here. So just curious, let's just go through this exercise, okay, because it can be a good thing. Let's zoom in the waveform. So the top one, as you remember, this is the distortion 2, right? And then the bottom one, okay, this is distortion right, okay? So let's zoom it in and let's take a look at the waveforms. So it's a bit hard to tell because this is actually distorted, but one of the things that I notice here is that the correlation is at 0, so it's neither positive, neither negative. Could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. So let's play around, okay, with some stuff. Okay, let's play around with adjusting some of the track delay, and let's see. Now, if I get a positive value, right, the meter here moves towards the right, you know, I get a better correlation. Plus, I need to hear it. Maybe that means it's gonna get a more solid sound now. So just by playing around with some track delay and with phase, let's just check it out and see. Okay, so visually it's very hard to see because these are all distorted signals. So let's just play around with this and see whether we can get it better. Right. Interesting. Okay. It doesn't get any better. It actually kind of gets a little worse at this point. But this kind of tells me something as well. As you can see, the limit is only like 20 milliseconds. You can only delay it because if you delay more than 20 milliseconds, you know, has effect. All right. Am I getting the term right? Has effect. Because if you delay more than 20 seconds, then you will start hearing the thing as a separate sound. That's not what we want, okay? Right? You will hear a very discernible delay already. So we still want to hear it as a single sound, you know, double track guitars. So instead, let's pull this the other way. Let's pull negative delay, okay? Let's instead of pulling the track in front, let's reduce delay. Sorry, yeah, reduce the delay. So negative delay means pulling it in front. So correct, okay? Sorry if I end up confusing you. So let's listen to this. Interesting. I'm trying to hear where it sounds the most solid. Let me flip the polarity. Let me bypass. It's very, very subtle. Okay, so this means that, right, in terms of the two different tracks, okay, they're quite tight, which is great. Kudos, right? The guys did a really, really good job, right, of making it very, very tight. So, but there's just one little subtle thing, okay? This one, okay, let me try to bypass this. To me, when I engage this in, the guitars seem to just move just a little bit closer, nearer to me. It's very hard to hear. You really have to pay attention to it. But again, let's listen to these two guitars again, okay? Right, so this is without. Okay, this is without the track delay. And now let's engage it. This is without. This is with. there's a little bit more low end. It's a little bit further forward, just a tiny touch. So this could be something that this could be a trail that could be leading to somewhere lah. So all this is just by introducing a little bit of track delay between these two, which, right, let's check this out, right? 4.12 milliseconds, right? Negative 4.12 milliseconds. This means we're bringing the right distortion to a distortion tree, right? Which is the one you're hearing on the right side. A little bit earlier, 4.1 milliseconds. In this case, right, this is about, how many is this? 182 centimeters. That's about 6 feet, about 5 feet, okay? So it's about 5 feet difference, okay? So as if the sound waves is traveling, right, is moving like from 5 feet away. So let's remember this value. Let's apply this value to the distortion tree track. So in Cubase, we can do this here, but your DAW may have something else different. So let's just remember this, okay? So 4.12. Now I'm gonna bypass the interface, okay? And let's listen to it again, okay? So, okay, 0 track delay. Now 4.12. Yeah, okay. Once you know what to hear for, it will sound very obvious to you. Now it definitely, right, is a very subtle but obvious improvement lah. Okay, so let's keep this there, 4.12 milliseconds. Okay, let's listen in context with the rest of the music. All right, okay, now once again, as I said, set and don't forget. Interesting. Now when the guitar comes back in, it felt that I took out too much of this 800 hertz. Let's bring it back to its original setting lah, okay, which is at 9 dB. So, right, again, maybe that's a reason why I had it there in the first place with the first song. Yeah, okay. Now at least I hear the bass definition. It's back there already. Before that, it was kind of muffled. Very nice. Okay, so let's continue on. Let's continue now. Let's blend in a little bit of this distortion guitar here. I'm going to have this maybe about 75% to the left. Let's check the phase, flip the polarity. That's fine. Very nice. Okay, so then let's dial in this fourth guitar track. Let's dial it in, okay? Very nice, okay? So it's kind of cool, and the end result is actually really satisfying as well, because now you have 4 very different guitar tones, and something which, again, I don't usually do, but in this case it works, right? Having these 4 very distinct guitar tones kind of gives as they say, the sum of all the parts is greater than I messed up that saying, but basically having all these 4 different parts, when they sum them all together, they work together really well. So there we go. Very nice. Okay, let me just balance them down a little bit. Now, it needs something, just one more thing to give the guitars a little bit more bite, and I love to use the Better Maker EQ. So the Better Maker, right, is the way that it's touted is that it's like a advanced modern version of Pultec. Okay, so that's basically what it is. Some of the frequencies, as you can hear, so it's dialed into what the Pultec frequencies are, but it's like in a modernized version. First look at this, it's very, very confusing plugin to use, but after a while you can kind of get the hang of it. So I just want to give it a little bit air. So 6K is actually a good starting point. Yeah, just to lift it a little bit. A bit too much. Just bring it down. Just 1 dB, I think. Disengage. Alright. A bit of bottom end boost. Yeah, just to make it a bit thicker. Yeah. Okay, probably need to compensate it down by about half a dB lah, okay? Because of these 2 boosts that I'm doing. Alright, sweet. Okay, now let's jump back to something which I do, all right? I talked a little bit earlier about dynamics, and dynamics, right, in a mix is what helps propel the listener, keeps the listener's attention to your song, makes them want to keep on listening to what's next, what's next, what's next. So a lot of it is achieved by your arrangement in the first place. I would say 60% of that, 60 to 70% is achieved on the musical arrangement, how the parts are arranged, how the different parts are selected and chosen and recorded. That plays a big role. As a mixing engineer, you can only sort of do so much to help it along the way. The arrangement needs to work in the first place. But one of the things that we do to sort of help things along the way is, and one I typically do, I'll show you right now, it's just a little bit of automation on the bass. So, you know, when you get to the chorus, very typically you add on a little bit more layers. The vocals are a little bit thicker, a little bit more layers. But one thing that's sometimes neglected is the bottom end. So sometimes, you know, when you get to the chorus, where typically you add more parts, you add additional guitar parts, so it's all building up on the mid-range and all the higher frequencies. We forget about the bottom end, okay? So mustn't neglect that. So one thing that I would often do is when we get to the chorus, I will just automate this little 1 dB shelf. Okay, I'll show you first. This little 1 dB shelf at 100 Hertz. Simple thing. It just lifts and adds a little bit more weight to the bass when you get to the chorus, okay? So that's arm the automation. Let's okay, where is the chorus? Okay, the chorus is coming in here. So here we go. Let's go. Ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, in. Just very subtle. And as you can guess it, once the chorus, at the end of the chorus, disengage this EQ. Hi-hat could go up a little bit louder, but I'll think about it later. These are thoughts that go into my head. And EQ out, okay? And then now we disengage this. So this is going from the first chorus into the first solo, right? Yep. So engage the EQ right here. Then drops out here when it gets into the solo. Right. And guess what? Let's do the same thing in the second chorus. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'll just draw this one in lah, okay? Right. This one's slightly earlier. The note's a bit earlier. It's okay, man. This is rock and roll, alright? The bass is just a tad earlier. That's fine. Alright, okay. Right at the end. So let's cut it out at the end of this note lah. Okay, so done at this end. Yeah, it doesn't need it there. hang on a second. Why is this bass note like... Okay, right. All right. Okay, you have to I have to excuse and pardon the little error here. Okay, now what happened here is you can see why everything is out of time here right now. Okay, okay, I'll show you what happened. You see, this note here sounds out of place. But when I pull this track back, that's actually where it is. Okay, what's happened here is that right, my intern, unfortunately, who I asked to do all the prep work, and kind of messed up here, all right. So he has kind of shifted all of these bass lines like a little bit further to the right. So, okay, let's fix this right now. Okay, good thing we caught this issue in his tracks. No wonder it's like, okay, why is it sounding so weird, lah? Okay, so here we go. Let's fix this problem. Okay, let's pull this down. Let's look at this, because what I did, what I do, in prepping, we clean up all the starts and stops, the topping and tailing of all the parts, as we say. Okay, and very likely what has happened is that, yeah, he has accidentally nudged it 2 bars, right? 2 beats to the left. So, okay, all right, yep, that middle section only lah. So this part at the back is okay. So yeah, so the little bridge and all the bridge and the solo section in the middle all got shifted to the left a bit. So that happens, okay, right? It's all right, okay. Point the finger at the intern then, right? Shout out to you, okay, Leo. That's all right. No worries. Mistakes are made. As we say, okay, in audio engineering, in music production, in the studio, you make a mistake, no one gets hurt, okay? No one gets hurt. It's not like we're civil engineers or aviation engineers. If those guys, building engineers, make mistakes in their calculation, people die, people get hurt, okay? Not audio engineering. All right, so where were we? Okay, so back to that topic. So we engage the EQ, right? This 100 dB, 1 dB shelf at 100 hertz every time in the chorus. So here, and then obviously here, last chorus all the way to the end lah. So this helps to give a little bit of weight every time the chorus kicks in, just that little bit extra weight there. 1 dB, that's all it's needed. Okay, now, we have this little distortion 4, which actually should be just one of the tracks. Similar tracks, but let me just check it out first to see how it sounds like. And so this is like a much more heavily scooped. Is this the neck pickup? I think it's a bit hard to tell. It sounds like it's a very, very different sound anyway. So okay, let's treat it as a different sound now. Okay, all right. So, and that's kind of reason why it's on a different track also. Let's dial this in. This does not need, again, it's got a lot of that bottom end though. Which let's see, that could be useful, all right? Because this is a breakdown, that could be useful. Let's not roll everything off first, but definitely want to take out the top end. There's a lot of sub there. Usually this is not needed, but let's listen in context. Let's listen with everything together. Interesting. Okay, interesting. So I think this actually helps to add a little bit of depth. I'm not going to send it to the distortion group. This is something that belongs on its own, all right? So let's keep it separate. That bottom end actually works now because the bass actually cuts out here, which is fine, okay? So let's leave it there. Very. All right, sweet. Okay, I'll deal with some of these sustains a little bit later on. And again, in context lah, let's listen to how it works in context. Okay, very, very important. Let me just so do a little bit of this housekeeping first. All right, here we go. Let's see. Then when it kicks in again. Maybe all the way to the left, hard left. Yeah, let's keep it hard left lah, okay? That's fine. And at bottom end, I really don't mind it now. I don't mind it, so let's just keep it there lah, okay? I don't mind at this point because this helps to fill up the space when the bass is not there. So there we go. Kick, drum space and rhythm guitars. I'm gonna skip, all right? Skip all of the synths and the traditional instruments, the shakuhachi, the shamisen, and all this other stuff, because those are more of ear candy elements. Tip again, right? Very, very common. It's very, very helpful to try and bring in the vocal as early as possible. That's what I try to do. Okay, so establish that relationship first. Not to say that the keyboards are not important. The keyboards are very, very crucial, very important. But you know, it's depending on the song, it's crucial to kind of bring in all these in first, okay? And hang on a second. And hey, who else is that? I see someone in the chat as well. Rust Reaver. Hey Sam, this is awesome. Okay, right. So you know, this track, this music kind of works. Is kind of something in your you know, something up your alley lah, okay? Rust Weaver Sam says, man, that bass tone is killer, really gels well with those heavy guitars, okay? So, alright. Sam, Rust Weaver, meet Sunny. Sunny is a Malaysian who's working in China right now, right? These guys are from Shenzhen in China, so maybe you could hook up, man, right? All right, you do both, since both of you guys are into the both of the bands are into heavy stuff. So thanks for tuning in, man, Sam. Super, super cool. I'll see you tomorrow. We're actually going to be recording guitars for Sam's project tomorrow. His single, which I'm working on, I'm producing and recording. So super stoked and super excited. Okay, maybe we'll feature Sam's song on a future episode, right? When it comes to mix this. So as I was saying, let's get down to vocals. Okay. So vocals as usual, right? Now I have after working on the first song, I sort of know a little bit more because what these guys do, Moon's the vocalist, so he does several layers. So you know, you have a low layer, you have a high layer, right, of the ground and scream vocals. So they would kind of prefer to have the highs on top. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, Sunny. Okay, right. But again, do you guys prefer that to have the high vocal as the forefront and the low vocal to be more of the background to give it a little bit of weight? So let's start with that. And in fact, to make it a little bit easier, let me switch this over. So let's start with the high vocal. Super simple. My vocal track, all right, my vocal processing for vocals, right? It's in two stages. So this first stage is similar to what I've done, right? Same thing, tape, emulation, right? And followed by the console and the also the preamp emulation. Now I had to adjust a little bit of the trim because the level of the vocals was a little bit low, so I had to drive this a little bit up, but that's fine. That's what a trimmer vocal is for. But the cool thing and the one thing that's a little bit different is this, okay? Right, it's the FG stress. So this is the model of the Empirical Labs Distressor, which is a very, very, very well-known and sought-after compressor as well. But what I do here, I run the vocals through a parallel compression setting. So what's parallel compression? Super easy. As the name implies, parallel means that you mix a uncompressed signal, the untreated, the uncompressed signal, and you blend it and mix it with a heavily compressed signal, in this case the vocal, right? So you take the two, you blend the two of them together, and what this gives you is it gives you the best of both worlds. It gives you a vocal which has the dynamics of the original dynamics of the performance, but it also adds in a texture, the texture and the density and the solidness of a very, very heavily compressed vocal. So it's super compressed, very, very heavily compressed, blended in with then we just blend it in with the two signals, and then you get the best of both worlds. So usually I have this 50-50, so let's maybe just solo this vocal, which is in the verse, and let's check this out, okay? Solo the vocal, and here we go. Okay, I'm gonna turn off the effects first, because let's hear it dry first of all, okay? Right, and I'll explain to you what are some other things. So here we go. Let's look at the processing. Okay, I feel like we need to drive this a little bit more. So let me play around with the input and output setting, okay? Let's just drive it. So this is at 5.5 and this is at about 6, right? Okay, let's drive it and see. I'm going to increase the input because I want to see this compression a little bit more aggressive. There we go. Very nice. Okay, so you can see we're getting up to like 12, 14 dB of gain reduction here. But because this is parallel compression, it's not going to sound as if it's overly compressed. I tend to start with a 50-50 balance, 50-50% mix, and most of the time I like to stick with that. Only certain times I will probably reduce this to maybe sometimes a 30-70 or 40-60 But most of the time, and from the way I like it with a lot of rock vocals, it's usually 50-50, okay? So 50-50 is kind of the great, it's a good balance here. So that is how I'm going to set it. So let's solo this. In fact, with all this aggressive compression, you can actually start to hear a little bit of the room sound which they recorded in, but it's perfectly fine. It's okay. It's very, very manageable. That's perfectly okay. And again, in context with the track, it's not going to be apparent. So let's solo the thing. Let's take out some of the... Okay, we don't need all the top end. Let's take out the top end. All right. All right, okay. So I'm hearing two things there, some two tones which don't really need to be there. There's one kind of a very, very low-ish tone, right? It's like this single note which kind of goes all the way throughout, right? And it doesn't really contribute to the actual note of the vocal, so to speak, okay? I mean, it's screamo vocals, so it's not really a note in particular. But there's also another higher sort of a resonance there, and let's get rid of that, okay? I hear two things. Okay, one. So this first one is a little honky. There. 990 hertz, 100 hertz around there. It's a little kong kong. Okay, once I solo this, you can hear that note, right? I can't replicate that note, okay? Right? So it's that note there up there, which is essentially about, the note B, A sharp B, which is kind of cool that it's that note, because if the song is in the drop C tuning, getting rid of that B so is helpful, because B with a C, you get a dissonant, it's a dissonant, it's a semitone there, see? So let's just notch that out a little bit. Hello, play? Are we playing? Okay, we are, but we already got past the vocal already. Bypass? Alright, okay, now there's one more. It's just a little low note. At about 190. This is actually more of like the fundamental, the more chest frequencies. So, again, set and don't forget, okay? Set and don't forget, this is there, that frequency is there. I suspect and will only know when I put in the low vocal whether or not my guess is correct lah. It's just an educated guess. But I think that maybe that low vocal will sort of cover that range. So sort of notching this out is gonna make room for it lah. So there we go. Okay. Let's oh, mute mode has ended. Stay in mute mode for 2 more hours. Okay, thanks Chen micro security. Okay. Mute mode is so that it doesn't pop up notifications here and there. So let's blend this in. Let's pull this in. Let's pull in the vocal. Very cool. Okay, so that's the high vocal. That would be the main one. Okay, so let's move on to the low. So low vocal. All right. I'm gonna sort of start with the similar. Okay, now let's not be lazy. Okay, let's not be lazy. So this is a low vocal. Right. Okay. So same thing. Let's take out. We don't need the super bottom end. And we don't need the super top end. Okay, same thing. I'm hearing some notes and resonances that we don't really need. Right, so this is more of a nasal thing. You know, 670 hertz, you don't really need. And one sort of higher frequency. A bit whistly. Yeah, at that 1.7K. You just need to take that out, okay? So it's just stuff frequencies that's not contributing to the overall vocal tone. It helps to sort of clean it up a little bit, right? And this one, let's just blend it in. Same thing, right? So the lows is going to be blended in lah. That is their style. That's the balance that we've determined, right, with the first song that I mixed for them already. Very cool. Okay, so that's the balance. Okay, so I mentioned earlier, right, with vocals, it's a two-stage thing. The first stage is what I call the corrective processing. This is where, you know, we sort of, as I've shown you, you know, getting rid of all the ugly warts, like all the rough spots, all the rough edges that we don't want. We don't need all the super bottom end. We don't need all the super high top end. We're getting rid of all these weird resonances that may be there. Okay, so once that's done, this once again is being bussed into a group, and this is the main vocal group, and I've got a bunch of processing here as well. Okay, so this second stage of vocal processing is what I call the creative processing. First half is corrective, right? Fixing all the issues, the ugly warts and all, right? It's like, you know, if someone does makeup, you put the foundation. That's the foundation first, okay? To hide all the all the blemishes and all that. And then you add on the creative. You add on the color, you add on the gloss, you add on the different shades, right? Just to color it. That's sort of an analogy, okay? Right? So let's start with a couple of things. Firstly this is a Pultec EQ, right? So this Pultec EQ here is super loud. It's really, really cool for vocals. So it's what I've got is boost at about 4 and a boost here at about 3K. I go for the broad bandwidth, right? Fairly good amount of boost. Let's listen to without. All right, let's solo the vocal. Let's listen without. Right, subtle in a way, okay. I have this attenuation 20 at 20K. Just again, it will be a gentle shelf, right? just to shelve off some of the top higher end frequencies lah. This is not a pop ballad, so you don't need metal vocals to be like super airy, like it's like as if it's a pop song. Okay, so here we go. Next in line is the 1176. Once again, the revision A. Okay, the blue stripe. So this is set to fastest release, fastest attack, fastest release. Pretty much right. This is one of my favorite settings on the actual 1176. Anyway, for the one ratio, fairly aggressive. This is not really it's not really here for compression. This is more for the tone. Okay, so here we go. Okay, back to the let's put it in cycle mode so it's easier. Fairly aggressive. Okay. Alright, so let me check this. Very cool. Okay, a few other things. Let's check it out here. Do I have this engaged? No, right? So this is not really engaged. I don't really need this here. Not sure why this is turned on. Sometimes the settings are like that. Okay, but the next thing I have here, so let me just disable this. Don't need this instance of TDR Nova. Let's turn this off. Next one I have is this de-esser. This is Waves de-esser. This is one of the old, regular what's that, one of the go-tos lah, right, for any sort of de-essers that out there that's by Waves. Super simple to use. This is just to catch some of the sibilances, right? Especially that's all, right? Just to control, right? Catch some of the right, especially with these aggressive vocals. Now, next thing in line, MV2 again. So, right, we saw MV2 earlier on the bass. MV2 is gonna be you'll see that later. I love to use that on things such as lead lines, synth lines as well, because it's very cool. Again, this is too with this low level. They call this low level. It's a combination again of expansion, parallel compression, right? It basically does what it usually takes several plugins to sort of accomplish what this does, but it does this in one simple, easy to use package. Okay, so again, the main reason for this is just to bring out more energy in all the low level stuff. The transients, right? The attack of the vocals helps to improve things like intelligibility, right? So especially when you talk about metal and scream vocals, it helps to improve, right, the intelligibility of the words lah. Okay, right? No, sometimes in death metal genre, sometimes it's you no matter what you do, you can't really understand what they're saying anyway, right? Right, shout out to the metal bands I work with, Upon Arrival, and all those super cool guys. Yeah, sorry, sometimes when I'm recording you guys, I still don't really understand. I have to look at the lyrics there. Oh, okay, I get it, right? So MV2 is there to bring out and squeeze all the energy out. Now, even though this is rock, even though it's metal, I still sometimes vocal rider is very important, right? And with this, it's slightly different. With the settings that I have here, I realized that with this sort of a scream vocals, it's very dynamic. You get very loud peaks. Also because you tend to be working very close to the microphone. Again, I'm not sure. Hey, Sunny, like how did you guys record the vocals, man? If you can maybe sort of elaborate in the chat and just let me know what mic were you using, how did you do it, right? Like for me, very typically, I would use a dynamic instead of a condenser. And sometimes I even one mic that I like to use, that for me, I use the Audio-Technica. It's an Audio-Technica AE2500. That's actually a dual element. Looks something like this, and if you go back to my earlier mix streams, right, I'm actually using that mic for the commentary for this. It's my streaming mic that I use, right? This is a different mic. This is an AD2040. That is like the super Rolls Royce, the big brother lah. All right. So I use that. So very typically very common to use a dynamic mic.
SM7B comes to mind. That is, of course, very, very famous and well-known microphone that you can use for vocals. Let's see. Hang on. Let's see. Rust Fever say, is this the Iron Buddha song? Okay. I'm not sure, man. Sam asked this question. Sunny will have to answer that. Awesome track. It's got some early Children of Bottom vibes, especially those vocals. Love those traditional instruments in the breakdown. Yeah, right. Super, super cool. This is their style and their signature, lah. Right. So we'll hear those traditional instruments later. Let's continue with the vocals. Enough of my rambling. Okay. So as I'm saying, this here instead needs a much more wider range. Okay, a lot wider range because it's gonna be more dynamic. So let's see it in action. Right? So more wider range. Very cool. Now let's see what else do I have in here. Okay. This API 560 is a graphic EQ. I put this at the end of the chain. This is just for little finishing touches. So in this case, what I've done here is took out a tiny titch of 4K, boosted a little bit of 1K, took out a little bit of 500 and 250. Okay, so right, a little bit of that 250 500 range, that low mid, which you don't really need, a little bit of a 1K bump for a little bit more presence, same curve 4K or so, a little more presence and brightness there lah. So basically that's it, right? And last thing, virtual mix rack, right, going through the virtual mix bus, same thing, simulating the signal flow of an analog console. So there goes, right, the vocal. Let's listen in context. This is without the effects yet, huh? All right, very, very cool. So now let's go into, we're still in the creative side of vocals. Let's go into the effects, okay? First effect that I would usually do, okay, let me disable all of this stuff first so that we can go through one by one. First one that I usually do is using Super Tap. This is Waves Super Tap. Super Tap is a delay, but this is actually used because what I want to do is I want to put the vocal as if it was being recorded in a very nice, like a wood sounding, like a wood, big, a nice expensive sounding, that's the word, an expensive sounding studio, right? So this actually is being used to simulate, right, placing it inside the room. What this does, all right, is just a single reflection. I'm just creating a single reflection from this. No feedback because you don't want this delay to feedback. Like you don't want it to bounce. You don't want to create a delay. It's just a single bounce back. That's it. It's as if you're inside the room. But the key here is this EQ section, right? This is a low pass. That means you cut off all the highs. Everything above 1.5K. Okay, so it's going to be a fairly dark and a warm sounding thing. Again, reminiscent if you're recording inside, a nice studio with nice wood paneling and wood walls and timber floors and all that. So that's what it does. So let's solo this. I'll exaggerate this a little bit so you can sort of hear how it sounds, right? And then I'll dial it back to the appropriate level. Okay, so let's go with the vocal again. Let's play the vocals. Okay, I'm going to bump it up. Oh, hang on. I know why. Because I actually turned down the effects early on. Let me bring this back up again. Okay. I'm working on dual monitors, by the way, so sometimes I'm keying something which you might not see. It's off screen on my second monitor. But this one, because I turned down effects earlier, bring this back up and you'll be able to hear what I mean by the super tap lah. Okay, here we go. Super tap. So you can hear, right? You can hear, so it's as if you can hear the room sound that's coming out of it. Or obviously it's way too much, okay? So let's back it down to the appropriate level, right? Which is about -7.14. So there you go, right? Sounds like in a nice room. Next thing I want to do is let's make the vocals a little bit thicker, a little bit more, a little bit more dense. So there are many ways of doing it. Obviously, you can layer stuff. You can layer and record many tracks. But if the tracks are not super tight, what you end up is like, then it starts sounding like a group, which isn't exactly what you want. You just want it to sound like a main lead vocal, just a little bit thicker. So many techniques that you can do. Again, I've got a video on the channel called the vocal thickening trick, and that displays one of the techniques which I use very often. You can go to that video, or you can just go to any of my earlier mix streams and you'll see lah, okay? It's there. So what I'm going to do in this case is just keep it fairly simple, right? Again, with rock, with metal stuff, you don't want to be overly complicated with the vocal processing. So in this case, this is using Waves Doubler, okay? Okay, it's actually a preset called Doubler EQ, right? Doubler EQ. Basically, what this does is, you know, we're doing a little bit of pitch shifting, slight amount of delay, right? A slight amount of modulation, and we've EQ'd this to pretty much roll off a lot of the lows, right? Everything like you said, 1K below is rolled off, and you know, like everything 4K above is boosted. So it's a very EQ'd doubler effect. So again, I'm going to exaggerate it so you can hear how it sounds like, and then dial it back down to the appropriate level. Okay, here we go. Okay, hang on, solo. Right. Super wide. Okay, that's basically what it does. It's spreading everything wide. It's like a doubler, as the name implies, a doubler kind of effect. But this is again too much lah. So we're just dialing it back just a little bit, just to make the vocal sound a little bit wider than it is, slightly more air, because again, this is an EQ'd effect. It's very highly EQ'd. All the lows are bottom out, so this is going to be very subtle. This is, yeah, it just spreads it out a little bit, okay? Right. So here we go. And Sunny says, all right, okay. SM58, all right, okay. Awesome. All right, that's what I guess. And this is a great example. Just the humble, lowly SM58, right? And with a good vocalist, a good delivery, a good performance, gives you a great result, okay? Right? SM58 does the job, man. Okay, so Sunny says, right, right. And Sam says, that's awesome, okay? Right, that's awesome. Right, we tested the AT condenser, a few others, and the SM58 sounded the best. Right, there you go. It's not necessarily always the most expensive microphone. It's always selecting the right microphone, the right situation and time. And sometimes an SM58 can be more appropriate, sounds better and more suitable than a a Neumann U87 or Telefunken, right? 251. Okay, just saying. So great example here, right? SM58 does the job, man. So next thing. Right, the next effect that I'm gonna have here, this is a mono delay, okay? So this mono delay here, right? So now we've spread it a little bit to the right, spread everything, we place it in the room, we spread the vocals a little bit. Now we want to give it a bit of depth, a little bit of front and back. So the way that we do it, right, is we gonna use a combination of delays and also reverbs later. We'll show it, I'll show you how. But not too much. This is a mono delay that is set to 8th notes, right? The tempo of the song is 160. So this is a mono delay. And again, once more, I'll dial this in so we can hear the effect. Okay, so you can hear the tail. Once again, this is too much. This is just to demonstrate so you can hear what the effect is. So mono delay, yeah? So it's straight, right, front to back. So I've had this, let me look back at my mix notes. If you're curious to know what my mix notes are, right, I've shown it on previous live streams as well. Super old-fashioned, okay? I just use a buku lima, 355 book, and then I have my mix notes here, right in this little thingy here, like that. Okay, so yeah, let's look back at my mix notes and where is it? I've lost track of which page it is already, right? Because a lot of the songs which I mix, I put the mix notes right down here using this old-fashioned way. Okay, there it is. Yep. So my mono delay was set at about -25. So this is very subtle. Should be very subtle. Okay. I think the first mix I did for them, you're like, oh, it's a bit too wet. Okay, so fair enough, right? Let's keep it back down and just dry it up a little bit. So here we go. Let's listen in context now with the full music. Okay, all right, cool. So still fairly dry, but it's got space. Okay, that's the important thing. So let's move on. Let's go on to the chorus. So this chorus here is, I think it's doubled, right? Okay, right. So it's got, right? Again, dynamics. We want the chorus to be bigger, so double track these high vocals, right? So super basic concept, and right. Typically, that's what we do. So this one is, it's a high vocal as usual. So let's, don't have to complicate things. Let's just copy the settings over from that same processing. Okay. And let's dial this in. Let's link these two together. And let's just pull it in first. This should be just slightly panned out to the left and right at about, 25 each. Again, giving it a bit of width lah. Okay, right. This one's slightly lower. I bring it down at about 3 dB lower because, all right, it's the, what law is it? Basically, when you have double of something, it's roughly about 3 dB louder lah. So roughly about this, you see, with this is at -10. This I have to turn it down a little bit, maybe a little bit. In fact, maybe even more, maybe 4. Oh, hello, maybe about 4.5 dB actually. And what happened to my numeric lock? There you go. Here we go. Yeah, about that. Maybe even less actually. Maybe even less. -15. Again, maybe because I have not put in all the synth stuff yet. So we'll see how. Right? So chorus, right? Spread a little bit wider. Let's go with the low vocal. Let's copy over the settings and same story. Let's blend this baby in. So these are the low vocal. All right, okay, very cool. Okay, I noticed one thing actually, right? This last chorus, this little bit is missing. So I'm not sure whether I'll check with Sunny and see, right, whether this little last vocal here, which is the second vocal, it's kind of missing. So yeah, chorus high 2. Yeah, there's like nothing behind there, because the track only ends up here. So it could be that, but let's use this as a placeholder. Let me just stick this there for the time being lah. I'm just going to copy this over, right? Probably works anyway. Okay, so now back to some of the effects. One more thing I'm going to show you, right, is that back to the topic of building dynamics. Okay, so when we kick into the chorus, everything needs to be bigger, wider, louder and everything. Same goes with the effects as well. You can also create the sense of everything getting a little bit bigger, a bit more dynamics in terms of what we do. And here, how we're going to do this is that when the chorus kicks in, it will be kicking in a stereo delay. So versus, as you can see, mono delay. When you get into the chorus, stereo delay, right? Super simple. All right. So in this case, the stereo delay is set to quarter notes, right? This offset is set to offset, so it will offset the two sides a little bit differently. Otherwise, in the end, you end up with being another mono delay as well. So in the verses, you get it's a mono delay down the center. So in the chorus, bam, you get a wider delay to make the vocal sound a little bit bigger. But again, right, it's very, very subtle right? The idea is just to give it a sense of slightly bigger, right? Making the chorus sound bigger. So here we go. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Engage. Right? You can hear that whenever I press stop, right? You can hear the delays, right, trailing off lah. So same thing. Once this is over, there we go, right? So, right? Stereo delay in the chorus, mono delay in the verses. This is like a classic trick and a classic technique lah. So coming out of the chorus, disengage the stereo delay. So let's just do the same thing for the other choruses. Stereo delay in, out, third verse in, and then out again. Oops, so I accidentally touched that. Yeah, and then out all the way to the end. There you go. So all the way, right, the end one. I thought of maybe just adding in a little, let's play around with that, with a little long coming into the bridge. Okay, right. Let me just check something. I'm just super worried that I'm just a little paranoid that my intern might have accidentally chopped it. Okay, right. Okay, cool. Just a little paranoia on my end. Okay. Let's do this. Okay. So this layer is actually a little bit long. So instead of keeping it to the right, it sounds a little weird. What I'm gonna do, let's automate this. Okay. So this long note that's held here, gonna automate it back to the center. There we go. Okay, so that it doesn't so it doesn't trail off to one side, which is gonna sound really, really weird. Okay, 25 feels a bit too much now. Let's bring this to about 20. It just feels a little wide. So let's just keep the vocals just tighter a little bit in the center lah. Okay. Chorus back again. So this chorus back to 20. We can do all this manually. In fact, we can actually just copy and paste the automation points, but never mind. Let's just draw it in. It gives me more time to talk and chat. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Friday night, there's a lot of other stuff to do. More interesting entertainment. Lots of stuff happening, actually. Like, I mentioned musicians. You have the live streams going on. You got a couple of music videos. I think Dewata Raya put out their music video tonight, which I will check out later on afterwards. And hang on, this last chorus. Alright, okay, this last chorus is pretty much a... Okay, yeah, so this last chorus, it's a long one. So maybe it didn't need this here, but let's just copy it over for consistency, because it would be strange to have, 3 layers here, 3 layers, and then only 2, because you get a bit of the size, the consistency is not there. So I just copied this from the second one over there. I think it works. Okay, so the last one. Okay, so where were we? Right, so yes, this long delay effect, which I talked about. Okay, all right. Maybe not. Let's just leave this there. Okay, this last little bit is just went a little bit loud, so let me just clip gain this down a little. maybe, maybe not, maybe not lah. Okay, let's just play with it. Let's just mess around. So because this is after all a mixing, it's a mixing channel and a mixing show. It'll be more interesting if I show stuff anyway. We can always take it out. As usual, usually the process of mixing is always a collaborative and a consultative one, right? That means after this is done, you always present it to the band, you present it to the artist, and you get feedback from the client. Maybe you need to adjust this, you need to change this, you need to change that, you need to add this, you need to remove this, right? Or sometimes in the best case scenario, hey, everything good, let's good to go, right? So in this case, let's check it out. Let's just add this one little delay, long delay to this tail, okay? Right. If the band doesn't like it, no harm, just remove it, okay? No problem at all. But if they think it's cool, then just leave it in there. So for this, we need a trusty calculator, and this is my calculator, right? Scientific calculator that I've had since high school. Casio, still working after 30 years, still working, okay? So the plugin I'm going to use, that I love to use for these long delays, is Lil Primal Tap from Sound Toys. This is based on an actual hardware unit, okay, called the Prime Time. It's a delay. Can't remember who is it by. Is it Eventide or TC Electronics? I don't remember who the maker is. But basically, this one has got no setting. There's no sync. You have to manually dial in the delay time. So how do we dial in and find the delay time? Very simple formula, okay? Right, so take notes. It's very easy. The magic number is 60,000, 60000. And then what you do is you divide it by the BPM, the tempo. So 60,000 divide by 160, and the result given to you is 375. So a quarter note delay, right, at 160 BPM is 375 milliseconds. So that's the formula, okay? So let's dial this in, 375. Now, the quirks of this plugin also, of the actual unit, is it's very hard to dial in the actual number. So you can't really dial in 375, right? The quirks of the real deal is like that. Okay, so 376, that's fine. A little close, that's close enough. So let's bring the mix up to full, feedback to about half, the input to about half. Okay, and then here you can multiply it. So I want a long delay, so 376. So I will multiply this by 2, or in fact, okay, let's leave it as 2 first. Maybe it's 4 lah. So we'll see how. Okay, so let's dial this in. It's just going to be at this one spot lah. Might be cheesy, all right? If it sounds cheesy, we remove it lah, okay? But let's just do it just for demonstration's sake. So arm. Probably need a little bit more. Let's increase this. Okay, that's a bit too much, I think, the initial one. Okay, right, cool. Okay, right. I think this needs to, okay, I know, I think this needs to engage a little bit earlier. Okay, right. It needs to engage earlier and then cut out here. Oh, hello? Cut out here. There we go. All right. So it will be a little bit more subtle lah. Maybe not. Okay, let me check on one thing that might be making it sound weird. It could be the vocal rider. So let's see what's behaving. Well, what is it doing? Because this is actually a fade out. So it could be pulling the volume unnaturally. So let me check this out. What's it doing? Okay, maybe that's why. So let me try to disable this for a second. Okay, no, doing that makes it worse. Okay, so screw that. Okay, let's cancel that. Okay, this actually makes it worse. I think this means that we need to do something manually lah. All right, so let me check. Where is the did I bypass this? Oh yeah, okay, that's exactly why. So let's disengage the bypass. Right, we don't want it to be a bypass, you see? So here we go. All right, okay. So looks like that little long delay thing, it's not really coming out. Doesn't need it, all right? Doesn't feel like I need it, or maybe I'll just play around and try something else later on lah, okay? But at the moment, at least it's there, just a little bit of a tail. Maybe I need to automate it. Let's try automating it. Okay, all right, okay. A little bit better. It helps to sort of drag the tail a little longer. Maybe not lah. Okay, you're right. So anyway, KIV. Let's move on to something else. Let's not spend like an inordinate amount of time just trying to figure out this little vocal effect. I'll play around with this right whenever I'm doing my fine tuning later on. Okay, let's go. Let's move on to keyboard solo. Right, let's go with all these keyboard solos first. Let's move this keyboard solo, and here is where, all right, MV2 is going to play a big role or so. Let's solo this, solo the solo, okay? Keyboard solo. Woohoo! All right, okay. We got a little bit of the Dream Theater thing going on. All right, so MV2 is also very great for lead lines because, again, it helps to bring out, especially with fast, rapid lines, it helps to bring out all the individual notes out there. So I'm going to dial this in. Yeah, especially the fast bits, okay? Especially the fast notes. Sometimes it gets buried. So this will help it to at least stay up there, lah, okay? So let's bring this in. Yeah, probably a little bit more. Very sweet. Okay, now let's find that center of power for the solo. We're around that 1.4, 1.5K region, just to help give it a bit of a nose to sort of poke out a little bit. And it's a good frequency range because, you know, that is probably where the guitar is, you know, lacking a bit of that scoop of range frequency there. So that helps the keyboard to poke out. And then, right, it answers. The reply is with a solo guitar. So let's same thing. Let's dial in the, okay, let's dial in the solo. Let's check it out. Okay, one thing with some of these, you actually do, once again, don't really need all the super top brightness. Very cool. Very, very cool. Okay, we go. Let's just blend the two in. Excuse me. Alright, okay, so these two, it's more like a twin solo. Okay, I need to, again, let's bring out that center. This is around 900 hertz. Nice, okay. Find the right balance. Very cool. I think I'll pan these guys a little bit, to the sides so that, the synth would start on the right. Slightly to the right. And then the guitar comes in on the left. Super cool. All right. So that's the solo. That's the first solo, by the way. All right. There's a second solo coming up. So let's go to that section. Okay. Here we can dial the guitars back to the center. Automate. And let's apply the same thing to this. The second lead. All right. All the shamisen. In fact, we should probably dial that in first. Okay, never mind. Let's put in the solo first. Woohoo! Yeah! Alright, okay, some automation is going to be needed, especially when it gets to this part here where they... Right, okay, especially when it gets to the lower notes, it tends to get a little bit buried, so... Okay, let's find out where that center of power is for those notes, okay? Yeah, so around that 380 region, so we just need to automate that part just to get those notes to come out. 2, 3, 4. Okay, right. So the 380 comes out. Well, what if we take out the 900 hertz there? See what happens. Three, 4. Yeah, okay. I think that works. All right. So, all right. When it gets to this part, Again, these are all broad strokes for now, okay? Some of this fine tuning will take place later, maybe like tomorrow, because after a couple of hours, you need to give the ears a bit of a bit of a rest, because the ears get saturated, you get a little bit fatigued. But again, I'm working at a consistent level 85 dB, so this gives me it's the most comfortable level. It helps to be able to work a longer period of time at this volume level, right? Let me just deal with this note here. Okay. Okay, right. The bend is like a little bit wayward. It's just a little. The vibrato is a bit wide, so I try and pull it in to be a little bit more in key lah. Okay, minor things, super minor. Okay, cool. Those are the solos. Now, okay, let's bring in all the synth guys. Okay, so let's start with this synth first. That's in the intro. This happens in the intro. Let's solo it. Okay, awesome. Okay, and let's similarly, same thing. Okay, right. Okay, nice stabs there. So I would use the distressor as usual. The distressor is a Swiss Army knife lah, okay, for a lot of things. And synth lead, let's just dial this in a little bit. And hello, where it is? Okay, there we go. Synth lead. Let's bring in the input. A bit more. Too much. Let's dial it back down. Okay, very cool, right? So we don't need all the super bottom. Okay, in one note we don't. We don't need that 390. Very cool. All right, cool. So now, a lot of the keyboards are actually very mono. So what I want to do is let's spread them out. Okay, let's give them a little bit more. Let's sterilize them, and as the name implies, let's use Ozone's Imager. Very cool tool to transform anything that's very narrow mid. You want to give it a little more stereo width, and that's what we're gonna do. Okay, we're gonna widen the keyboard. So turn on the sterilizer. Let's adjust the width. Voila! From mono, wide, big keyboards now. Okay, let's blend this in and see. Okay, here we go. 3, 4. In fact, now with everything in, it feels that the guitar needs to be a bit brighter, but again, it could be me. So let's just bring, instead of this, I'm going to use the mid-range EQ position to go. Let's look for about, my eyesight, man. Okay, so maybe about 5K. It just needs a little bit. Again, just a little bit, okay? This is kind of just to match the overall tonality, because the keyboards are a little bit bright, the guitars sound a little bit dark. Just bring this a little bit more, maybe a touch more on. Okay, very cool. Okay, right. Interesting thing is that bottom note seems to disappear. Let me see whether... Yeah, let's give it a bit more bottom end. Try one more time. Ah, I know. Okay, this is one of the secret ingredients. Revival. Let's give it a bit of density. Bit of automation. Okay, right. So when you get to that little arpeggio note, it just needs to poke out a little bit. So automate, automate, automate. Maybe like just half a dB, I think. Just a tiny bit. And then when it kicks back to the attacks, the dun dun dun, we should bring that back down to. Let's check it out. Okay. Subtle things. Just to bring it up. Yeah, I think that helps. I think that helps a little bit. Okay, again, these are all broad strokes, right? A lot of fine tuning is going to happen, you know, later on after I take an ear break. Usually it means I come back in the morning when I'm fresh, yeah, just to do all the fine tunings. But by the end of this session, it's going to probably be like 80% there. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so this comes back again here. Right. It works the way. Okay, it works for now. Let's just leave it, right? Because we need to hear in context with everything else. Let's go with synth 2. The second synth here. This is like an arpeggiator thing, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's like a filter, arpeggiator. Okay, so same thing. Let's apply this. Okay, very cool. So this one is a little bit interesting. Alright, because there's a filtered arpeggiator thing going on. This one, let's slam it real hard with Monster. Okay. Okay, right. Okay, this helps to helps again. I'm trying to squeeze out because sometimes at certain frequencies, those higher notes, those notes disappear. This really helps to squeeze it out. This is actually an 1176 setting with all buttons in mode. But that's what you call it. They call it Monster Extreme Dynamic Processor. But that's basically what I'm trying to do. Same thing. Let's give it a little bit of stereo spread. And this should not do much. This is just to, you know. Yeah, this does not need to be super wide like the original synth, because it is the verse after all. You know, again, keep dynamics out. You don't want everything to be super wide all the way. The verse can afford to be just a little bit more, you know, slightly more tucked towards the center. This is going to be tricky, right? Ooh, this is going to be really tricky because this synth does kind of sit with some of the vocals. It's very close, I would say, to the sound of, I mean, to the kind of frequency range of the vocals. So to sort of maybe give it a little bit of separation, I will put an auto pan to it. All right, so let's check it out. Just to give it motion now, because if it's dead center, right, it's going to fight with the vocal. Okay. let's go with slightly slow. Alright, okay, cool. So let's go with... Let's just see how this works, right? Just with an auto panel. Very tricky. Okay, let's move on first, all right? Because otherwise the stream's going to take too long. I'm just going to kind of tuck it underneath first, lah. It adds a bit of motion, but it adds a bit of motion with the auto pan happening. But let's just leave it now. Let's move on next, okay? Otherwise, the stream's going to take way, way, way too long. As usually, all right, let's get the... I want to show you the overall picture, all the key elements first, the drums, the bass, the rhythm, guitars, the vocals, and let's deal with all this ear candy, right? I'll deal with it later, lah. So here we go. This is a little organ. All right, where's the organ? Here we go. Yeah, the organ is coming in. Right, so very cool organ. This plays more like a... the role this is playing is more like a pad. So this one, I'll go with the FG2A, which is a little bit more gentler, right? This is an optical compressor, their version of the LA2A. Right. Yeah, okay, yep. We can have it a little bit aggressive. And same thing, this one, let's spread this out with the spatial panel. Let's get with ozone imager again, stereoize. Okay, now with these pad stings, I can spread it a lot wider, and in fact, I would like to have it, let's go all the way. Even if it's a little bit coming out of the side of the speakers, it also works, okay? It's fine. It's gonna sound very out of phase right now, but it helps it to sit in loud into the mix, just to push it a little bit wider. Here we go. And in fact, just to give it a little bit more of that spaciousness, I'm gonna put a reverb on it, and the one that I like to use, super simple, Soundtoys little plate. Okay, let's pull the mix back, give it a bit of modulation, take off all the extreme bottom end, and let's check it out. There we go, playback. Very nice, okay? Right, it's just gonna be there. Bells, let's go this little bell. Okay, similar kind of a treatment we can do with the synths. Same thing. Where is the FG stress? Right, okay. This one will deal with lead lines. And hello. Okay, this one, instead of spreading it left, right, maybe this one we keep it just for some variety. We just keep it to one side. Okay, right, maybe take out a bit of 3K. Again, to give space for the vocal. Right, okay. I brought up the cymbals just a tad because I think It's a lot denser. This song is a lot denser than the first one, so the crashes need to come out a little bit more. Again, alright. So where are we right now? Alright. Okay, bridge, shamisen. Let's bring that in. Nice. Okay, and alright, okay. So MV2 is what I'm going to bring in. MV2 is really great on plugged instruments. They're really good. It's really good on plugged instruments because it brings out, again, the pick attack, the note definition, right? Especially the pick attack, the plectrum of the shamisen. Okay, let's bring that. Alright, okay. This might need, the shamisen might need to go a little bit to the side, I think. Okay, I know what to do now. I gotta send this to a group, okay? I gotta send this to a group because I will need to give it a little bit of that extra treatment. Okay, so I'm gonna send it to this group 10 and I want to drop in a reverb. Okay, so for this one, I'm gonna use Liquid Sonic's Lustrous Plates, okay, which is a really nice reverb as well, okay? And we're gonna look for iridium frets. There we go. Let's solo this. There we go. Very nice. Okay, because I want the, because the shamisen is it's a monophonic instrument, so I don't want to put a stereo widener on it. But to give it a bit of space, I'm going to send it and put it through a reverb, just to give it a bit more of a stereo spread while still being a mono instrument. So let's check it out. One very interesting that's happening there, I don't know, is it because of the kick drum that's giving the compression? Is there some kind of side chain going on? Huh. That's a little weird. It's like this was side chained by the kick, but there's definitely no side chain here. So let's see, we might have to deal with this, okay? There we go, okay? I gotta automate that little line. Not sure why it's like the side chain was activated on this, because exactly when the kick drum comes in, but it's not on my end, you see. Okay, no worries, no big deal. Everything can be dealt with. We make it work, man. That's the model for audio engineers and producers. Well, we'll make it work. No worries. Okay. So it just sounds as if something triggered it, that it ducked the shamisen exactly where the kick drum hit. And this first hit especially is very aggressive. That's actually, it's not too bad. Oh. Okay, what did I do? I think I accidentally, yeah, okay. I drew in this little mute. That's not supposed to be muted. Okay, here we go. Okay, so now let's pull the shamisen over to the left, I would say. Right? My gut feeling tells me go left lah. Okay, let's pull this down. Let's bring the shamisen, this little group here, so it's a bit easier to see. Right? So it would go left, right here, about 50%. Very nice. Alright, okay. A little bit of automation. Okay, right, okay. We need to really dial this. I'll have to dial this in a lot more, detail later on, but just rough broad strokes first, okay? Same thing. Oops, hello. Okay, right, so when it kicks back in this little riff, it goes back to the original level. Alright, okay, so this song has got a lot more work for me, man, in terms of all the automation that needs to be done, but it's cool, that makes it more fun, okay? Got to play around with all these things. Okay, right, very cool. Lots of stuff going on. Shakuhachi, and that should be the very last thing. Okay, let's pull this in. Shakuhachi, same thing, man. MV2 is super effective on. Right, very effective on this sort of solo instruments, right? Because again, right, it just brings out sustain, brings out the notes, brings out brings out all the note detail. Alright, okay, so let's add again something a bit more reverb to this, okay? The sound has got already some reverb in it, but doesn't help, doesn't harm to add a little bit more, man. So this one, let's go for a dark vocal. We've got a little bit of a clip here, actually. Okay, right, there's a little bit of a, unfortunately, okay, but something that can be super easily dealt with. Let's go with let's go and declip. Let's deal with this first, okay? Restoration, isotope, hello, declip, there we go. All right, let's deal with this. Let's deal with this, baby, okay? Play. Okay. Okay. I apologize. This is gonna be super loud because it is running at that level. Okay. Let me just kind of mute the playback first, because otherwise it's gonna blow. It's gonna blow your ears away. Okay. You just hear me talk, but you hear me doing it. Okay, I'll be doing this here. You might hear a little bit through the mic lah. Okay, here we go. Yeah, but I'm just going to mute it to the stream. Okay, apply. And okay, I'm gonna turn back on the audio feed to the stream. Okay, so it won't blow your ears, you guys, your ears away. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, that might have been really loud. There you go. All right, I got rid of the clip already. So where were we just now? Where was I? Okay, totally forgot already. Okay, we up shakuhachi, right? Let's blend this in. Nice, okay. Again, some automation because again, some of the shakuhachi lines come in and out, in and out. Some automation is going to be there. This is just going to be the rough sketch. Very cool. And then this little part here. Okay, right. So there's two shakuhachi here. So we'll keep one to the left and another one stick to the right. Okay, right. So I know what this needs to do. This needs to, let's automate and ramp this up, okay? Let's automate this guy. Yeah, alright. So it'll be a bit more interesting. Oh, hello. Where is that delay still coming from? Okay, I know. Sometimes there's a little bug. Never mind, let's deal with this first. Alright, let this ramp up. Let's have this here. Alright, okay, so okay. Oh, that delay is not supposed to be there, so okay, right. There's this little glitch. I know it's coming from that long delay that we have. Right? Sometimes it happens. So now I just need to draw in the extra automation data there, so to make sure that this long delay turns off. Very cool. And that's pretty much it for all of the tracks actually. Super stoked, man. Let's see what else is going in the chat. Vars viewer says buku lima lima. All right. Yes, please copy my Chachat CNP cut and paste skill. Oh, okay. So there is a there is a bit of that missing one lah. Okay, cool. Right. Now what I'm gonna do right now is that we're coming to the end of the stream. So this is I sort of taken us about maybe 70 to 80% of the way, right? A lot of automation I've shown you is all the broad strokes. Some of this fine tuning is going to take place later. Usually it's a good idea to stop right now, you know, coming into about 3 hours of the stream, right? Take a little bit of an ear break, revisit again, either usually a couple of hours later, but in this case, because it's late, you know, I'll come back again fresh the next day with fresh ears to do all this fine tuning. But pretty much all of it is there. What I want to do right now is let's take a listen to the whole thing, right? But before I show that, I just one more thing I want to do, okay? But what I want to do on my side is I'm going to switch my monitoring speakers, right? Because I've been listening to my main speakers all this while. I want to have a different perspective, I'm going to switch over to my small pair of Yamaha NS10s. Obviously, when you're listening to this, you can't hear it, right? But switching to a second pair of monitors, or sometimes switching your monitoring to headphones or something else different, gives a different perspective. So I'm going to do that right now. And sometimes it will help, right? It puts everything into it will make a little bit more sense once I listen to different set of speakers. But one last thing, and this is another trick, right? A good old trick from the old guidebook, which helps you to again build dynamics. Simple one, I'll just show you very quickly. This involves automating the master, right? The master stereo bus. So very simple. This is what you do. You want to create an illusion of making the chorus a little bit bigger. Simplest thing, without any kind of EQ or whatsoever trick, just bump up the master volume 1 dB. All right. So I'll show you very quickly. This is the last thing, and then we'll take a listen and wrap this up real soon. So let's arm it. Ready? Going the chorus. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, up. Okay. So it's just a ramp up, okay, over that last 2 bars or so. So I'll show you here. All right. Da da da. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. So there you go. So the whole chorus, everything is bumped up by 1 dB. That is super simple, okay? So here we go. Let's wrap it up, and then coming out of the chorus, back down. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, very cool. All right, so coming out of the chorus, you do this first solo. Ramp back down to 0, okay? Back to unity. Let's copy this. We'll do the same thing at the next chorus. All right, here we go. Going to the next chorus. Next chorus. There we go. Copy. Same strategy. Okay, back down to the bridge, and you guessed it, one last time at the very last chorus lah. Okay, starting here at bar 158, ramp up 1 dB at bar 160. Now this is the last chorus, of course, so we'll just leave it all the way to the end. So there you go, right? So hopefully you found this useful and informative, okay? And we went through all the parts, and super cool. Thank you so much for watching this live stream. Whether you're watching this right now, shout out to Sunny, all right? Shout out to Sam also from Rust Weaver. I'll see you tomorrow. We're going to be recording guitars as well, all right? And check out Serpent Tyrant, okay? Their links and details are going to be down in the description below. Check them out, okay? Once again, if you're not yet a subscriber, if you're watching this later on, please do click on the subscribe button and click on the notification bell so that you don't miss out, okay? We've got lots of channels. We do this live stream every 2 weeks, right? And every 2 weeks we each feature a new band, right? A different band which I'm working on. Different styles: pop, rock, metal, R&B, hip hop, you name it. We do it instrumental, everything also. All right, all across my other channel. And again, once again, if you want to support the channel, you want to support the creation of content like this, and most of all, right, support the featured artist tonight, sign up, right? Head on down to the Patreon page. Details are down below, and sign up, become a patron, okay? All right, let's wrap it up by taking one sort of a run through to the entire song. We'll just comment on a few things, whatever things that come to my mind. Thank you so much. Okay, let's have a listen to TFT by Serpent Tyrant. Okay, kind of makes more sense when I listen to the small speakers, the NS10s here. Okay. Intro. Somehow listening on the NS10 is really revealing. sounds a lot clearer here for some reason. Love the change of the drum patterns, man. The guitars will need to automate, right? Right, just to automate bump the guitars up there, because that's like the riff that really gives the energy. Thoughts across my hand. Keyboard solo needs to be up a little bit, you know, up like about it. Maybe the first half of that keyboard solo, the first half, needs to be up about 1 or 2 dB. Probably add a bit of delay to that the guitar note, just so that you have a longer tail, because it kind of ends a bit abruptly. Okay, and then let's add a bit of shaker. Just kidding, man. Second chorus. With the vocals, I will listen back to the first song that we mixed, just to make sure that the relationship of the high and the low vocal is correct, okay? The ride on the bell there might not be necessary. Okay, I think I know why. I just need to tone this down a little bit, just like a dB or so. Okay. Shamisen is a little loud there. Coming in, that shamisen needs to be maybe just a notch softer. And the reason for so is that when the full band kicks in again, it's got the impact. So, you know, I'll probably take it down about 1 dB. Or maybe 1.5, 2 dBs. Yeah, the bell thing is a little bit obnoxious, so just gotta turn it down a little bit more. Then going to the final part. So again, some automation on the guitars again there, okay? Super, super cool. Alright, so there you go. That's the end of this episode of MixStream. Thank you so much for watching again. Please leave a like if you found this useful and informative. Share this, subscribe, become a patron, sign up on the email list. Everything's down there in the description. And yeah, almost there. Sweet, okay? Right, so there you go. This is like the first draft, right, of the Mix 4, right, TFT, the one of the upcoming songs that's going to be on Serpent Tyrant's upcoming album coming out this year, okay? Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay happy recording and mixing. To the guys out there, please send my regards, right? Stay safe, right? You guys over there in the Shenzhen, Guangdong area, okay? All right. Peace, love, and music. Good night.